So before we get into blueprints, which is the primary focus of these tutorials, is I want to cover a little bit of C++ code. If you're completely new to coding, a lot of this is going to be a little bit confusing, but if you give it a little bit of time and you keep working with it, you'll be able to fully comprehend everything I'm doing. So I'm going to try to just go as slow as possible, but um, it is a programming language, and with like any languages, you sort of have to learn sort of the syntax, or any language, Spanish, French, or whatever. All right, so back in our Unreal, you'll notice here if you click on this folder, you'll see that there's a folder here called C++ classes, and within it, there's an area where you can create some C++ code or classes. If you go to content, you'll notice it's a different area, and you're able to access it from here. So let's see where all of the C++ in Unreal is sort of tied in. So if I go down here and I go to File, and I go to Open Visual Studio and I click on that, you'll see that it pops up Visual Studio, and it shows me in my Solution Explorer the actual code. So everything in the engine is stuff you're never going to touch. This is all Unreal code. Unless you're doing game engine programming, you'll kind of stay away from there. Inside of games, what you'll notice is there's one in here called PacManz. And all of our source code is going to go inside of here, into this PacManz folder. And that's the .cpp in the header file that we're going to create in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and decompress or shrink that for a second. And even in content, if I right click here and I go to new C++ class, inside of this C++ class folder, it's going to load it in there. Okay? So inside of here, I'm going to click this folder. And actually, here's another way just to sort of show you. Go to File, New C++ Class. And what we want is an actor. And we are eventually, I mean, it's my hope that I'll go through all of this stuff with you. But for now, I'm just going to focus on this. And if you read the description, it says, an actor is an object that can be placed or spawned in the world. So this is something we want to drag and drop. So I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to name this actor pickup. Now you'll notice the path here, it says Unreal Projects, PacManz, Source, PacManz, right? And that's this folder right here. So if I go in here and I change source to pickups, right? And you can see I can go to choose folder. It's they're actually, let's see. I wanted to show you that it's in documents. Here, I'll show you. C, EXO, documents, Unreal. So let's I just want to show you the path really quick. How do we get there? Is it libraries? Yeah, libraries, documents. There we go. And documents. So I can kind of expand. There we go. Unreal projects. You'll notice there's one in here called PacManz, right? And source. So PacManz here. Source. There's another PacManz folder in here, and that's where they want us to set our code. So if I want to, actually, let's just leave it as PacManz, right? So I'll hit that as OK. It's going to bring us into this folder here, all right? And I could name this, let's see, I'll name this collectible, just to kind of give you a different one. It wouldn't let me name it pickup because I already made one when I was kind of preparing for this tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create class. And inside of here, I'm going to pause it because it usually takes a second to create all this stuff. You'll see that we have a sphere here. This is actually a collectible. This is a C++ class. This is what it looks like inside of Unreal. We haven't done anything yet, but we're going to write a bunch of variables that are going to let them become visible in the editor. We're going to write some code. So let's take a look at what we get, right? So I'm going to jump back into Visual Studio. And for you, this probably popped up too, right? So for now, here, let's kind of close out this other junk. Here's our collectible header file, right? And if you go inside of PacManz, that folder we talked about, source PacManz, you'll see we have a collectible.cpp and then we have a collectible header file. I want you to think of a header file as the blueprint for your class. And then inside of the .cpp, or this collectible.cpp, I want you to think about this as where you sort of define or you create that. So for example, I don't really need, for now, these two functions here. We're not going to be using a begin play or a tick. And so those two begin play, so I'm going to save that, and tick are actually defined under this protected section. So I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to remove this tick here. So I'm going to save that off. But make sure you don't delete this primary actor tick because we're going to be changing that later. So I'm going to stop this tutorial at the 5-minute mark, and then what we'll do in the next tutorial is in this collectible.cpp, or actually we're going to create some, we're going to define some header pointers, and then we're going to implement it in CPP. And I'm actually going to link my other videos on C++ to this video so that you can, if you're interested in learning more about this, then where you can get more information.